when I think about my time in the military, in the Marine Corps specifically, there wasn't as much, I don't want to say targeting or emphasis on being Black if you're a woman, because the women tended to stick together. Because
just as a woman.
Fortunately, yes, there were things that they could legitimately, under the rules that they existed when I was on active duty, do to women that they couldn't do. It's not a black or white thing, that men, they couldn't do those things to men.
Dean Felecia Epps is a highly accomplished legal professional and academic. Her impressive career includes leadership roles, military service, and a commitment to social justice. She joined UNT Dallas College of Law on July 1st, 2018, as its Dean and Professor of Law. Under her leadership, the college achieved crucial ABA accreditation. Previously, she served as Dean and Professor of Law at Florida A&M University College of Law. Dean Epps began her journey in 1980, earning a Bachelor of Arts from Cornell College before being commissioned a second lieutenant in the United States Marine Corps. She graduated with honors from Creighton University School of Law in 1983 and went on to serve 10 years as a judge advocate in the Navy, attaining the rank of major. Her post-military career included serving as a managing attorney for Georgia Legal Services Program, where she provided free legal services to low-income people. She transitioned into legal academia at the UALR William H. Bowen School of Law, teaching a variety of subjects and serving as associate dean. Throughout her career, Dean Epps has shown a deep commitment to community service, serving on numerous boards and co-chairing the Arkansas Criminal Code Revision Commission. Her scholarship focuses on social and criminal justice.
Welcome to the inaugural season of Making Black History Today. I'm your co-host, Liz.
And I'm your co-host, Porter, and we are so excited and honored to have Dean Epps in the studio today. Welcome, Dean Epps.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here and to see both of you again.
Yeah, we're excited too. So we're just going to start off. Where'd you grow up? What was it like growing up?
Oh, wow. Well, I will give the longer version of this story. It's not that much longer, but my family is originally from the Little Rock area, particularly Lone Oak, Arkansas, that area, and a little place called Shawls, Nashville, Mineral Springs. That's where my dad is from. My parents met at the University of Arkansas, Pine Bluff, back when it was Arkansas AM&N, back in the 50s.
HBCU.
Yes, an HBCU, which, some of us do recognize that was their option in Arkansas. If they wanted to get higher education, they couldn't walk down to the university in Fayetteville and be admitted because they weren't accepted because they were African Americans. But they decided once they married, even though they were both from Arkansas, they were in search of opportunities to move up in their careers. Both had bachelor's degrees. And so they moved to the Chicago area, ultimately to a suburb named Chicago Heights, Illinois, which is about 30 miles south of Chicago. And for those of you that follow this kind of thing, it's close to the area that the new pope is from.
Okay.
From that area. So that's really where I grew up. And I went to college and law school from there. But we always had strong connections to Arkansas because they would come down home every summer or send me the summers to be with my grandmother who lived in Mineral Springs. And we'd sit on the porch and shell peas and snap beans and all that. You all probably don't connect with that. That's back in the
I
old
had
days.
to.
I definitely connect with
My mom
it.
is from the country in Oklahoma, and we had to snap peas growing up.
Yes.
Saturdays was a big thing. You got to peel that thing back and shove them peas down.
That's right. And snap the beans and do all that. And there was no air conditioning or TV or even telephone back in the
simple
when
time.
we started out. Very simple times. And then as my parents got older and finished their careers, they decided that Chicago was too cold and snowy for senior citizens to be retiring in. And we also still at that time, my grandfather was still living. He was in a nursing home in Lone Oak. So they moved back to my mother's hometown, Lone Oak, Arkansas. And then I got the opportunity shortly after that to kind of move there as well and teach at the university in Little Rock.
Let's go back a little bit. So from Lone Oak, Mineral Springs, Arkansas, to outside of Chicago, how did you decide to go to Cornell?
Well, back in those days, which would have been, I graduated from high school in the bicentennial year, long before you all were born, 1976.
Oh.
And at that time, there was an interest in promoting diversity and having students of color go to these small liberal arts colleges in the middle of nowhere. And if you're a liberal arts college on a hill in Iowa, in a little town where there are no people of color at all, and you want to get those people of color, you were going to Chicago, Kansas City, or St. Louis. And so most of the Black students there came from those areas. And most of us had some kind of scholarships or financial incentives as well to do that, because there was an interest in, again, promoting the number of students of color at the college and seeing them go on, graduate and go on and become professionals and kind of witnesses for the colleges, because they do still struggle in attracting students of color to come there. Who wants to go to small town Iowa in the middle of a cornfield? Well, that I thought it was wonderful. And so I did go there from Chicago Heights, Illinois, after I graduated from high school. And they just sent recruiters to all of the high schools and things and look for students who might fit with the school. And my parents and I visited it. I thought it was wonderful, getting out away from everything. And I was interested in liberal arts education. I knew I wanted to be a lawyer, and I had pretty strong writing skills even at that time. So that's how I ended up at Cornell.
Writing was a thing that was emphasized back in that period of time. So your family was part of the Great Migration up to Illinois and from the country, south to north, transitional.
Well, they left there specifically. They could not get the kind of jobs and opportunities. Okay. Now, of course, the causes for the Great Migration were also racial violence in the South, and lynchings and those kind of things. And I understand all this in a different way now, because I remember even when we would drive between Arkansas and Chicago, my dad had all of these rules back and forth.
Right.
Look, we are not stopping anywhere unless we're stopping for gas pumps. That's it, and bathroom. All the food and everything that we need is going to be in this car. Because being African American and even making that journey and traveling, that was kind of risky. Or could be perilous in those times. So even though we were kids, they're trying to protect us.
Right.
And it's not until I've gotten much older that I realized, oh yeah, they left during the time of the Great Migration.
That's right.
They left because they were seeking jobs and opportunities that as college graduates, they just didn't have in Arkansas at the time. And they went there and pursued those things and were successful and retired and moved back.
I have a two-part question. When did you discover or decide that you wanted to practice law? And when did you decide that you wanted to join the military?
Okay, well, two entirely different time frames. I remember in 7th grade was the first time I said I wanted to be a lawyer. I think I was impressed by what lawyers did in terms of standing up in the courtroom. And the big courtroom show was either L.A. Law or Perry Mason or something that were on TV.
That's what I was going to say, Perry Mason.
Perry Mason, yeah.
Yes, the old Perry Mason now, so probably in black and white.
Yeah.
That Perry Mason. And he always won at the case and all that. That doesn't really happen. I'm sure you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's TV land.
Yes, that's TV land. It was really, he could always break down any witness, and they end up confessing that they were the ones that did the crime. I just love it. But that was TV. But I decided in 7th grade that I wanted to be a lawyer. And I remember telling my mother, and to me, this is always a message for parents, because my parents, when they moved from, they didn't have a lot of money when they moved from Arkansas to Chicago. And we ended up living in a housing project briefly. And then we moved to the suburbs, and it is now called Ford Heights. The time was called East Chicago Heights. It was segregated. It was one of the poorest, if not the poorest city in in Illinois. And so my parents at the time didn't have a bunch of resources, a lot of resources. They were very happy to be able to buy a house in that community. So that's a long way to say, when I say to my mom, I want to be a lawyer, she could have said, well, look, you're going to have to go to college, and you're going to have to go to law school, and I don't know how we can afford all of that. And so that may not be a very realistic thing. You need to think about something else. But when I said I wanted to be a lawyer, her thing began, oh, my daughter's going to be a lawyer. And
claiming it.
Yeah. That's right. Everything was positive and supportive.
That's good.
From that. And so even though, the money, whatever it was, they were very promoting of that, particularly my mother and my dad too, because she was always the force behind he's the one that's going to administer the discipline. When he got home from work, she was out working as well, but she was really the force in the family.
My mom always used to say, where there's a will, there's a way.
Yes.
So,
Or my mom was, the Lord will make a way somehow. And it always does happen.
Yeah, that's the same
we'll
thing,
make a way somehow. That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Military.
Oh, the military. So that wasn't quite as planned out as being a lawyer, but I remember arriving early for lunch at Cornell College when I was up there. And the military recruiter was there. It's called an officer selection officer who recruits officers into this program. And so I was early for lunch. I looked down, I see his table. I thought, well, the lunch hadn't opened up. Let me go down here and just explore with him these opportunities. And as I was approaching the table, one of my classmates, a woman, was giving this major hell about how the Marine Corps treated women, which you would think would say to me, just walk away from this table.
Here, go the other way
for you.
Right.
But I did engage with him and talked with him about the program and just got very interested in it. I did get selected to go to officer candidate school the summer between my junior and senior year in college, which was a very interesting experience, not quite expected. But once I got there and you get into all that, they call it esprit de corps, and you're with your platoon. And for us at the time, it was totally segregated by sex. So everybody in my platoon were all women. And once you get there and you do it and you realize you can do it, I just wanted to stay and get commissioned. So I got commissioned when I graduated from college, from Cornell College. I got commissioned as a second lieutenant, and then I went on to law school. And I get asked, well, did they pay for law school? No, they did not.
Wow.
That's a separate story, how law school was paid for. But while I was in law school, I did make time in rank, I guess. I didn't realize what all this meant at the time. But what it ended up meaning is by the time I graduated, I was selected for captain within like the first year or so.
Okay.
So I was just making rank faster. Now, on that same bend, back in the day when you were interested really in diversifying a legal profession, my law school, Creighton Law School, had scholarships, and they were targeted at students of color, African-American students and Hispanic, really, at that time. And so there would be a certain number who would just get a full ride, basically. And I remember applying to a lot of places and getting admitted to some. But when the letter came in the mail and the same mother sees the letter, it says, if you come here, we're going to pay. And we're going to give you a stipend. And we're going to pay for all your books. My mother was like, well, praise the Lord. I think you're going to Creighton Law School.
That's the way.
And she took the same letter to the church and showed the pastor.
Did they pray over it?
I don't know whether he did or not, but
sure
there was certainly a lot of celebrating. And so in my role now, I do realize the importance of having scholarships for students to attend college, because that enabled me to graduate from law school with zero debt. And now, although I'm not going to sell my school for any reasons, but our tuition is very competitive, let's just say nationwide, and we try to keep it that way, because if students have to borrow $60,000, $70,000 to go to law school for 1 year,
Mm-hmm.
which is not unthinkable, they've got to get certain types of jobs in order to pay that back, because you will have to pay that back. For us, they're not going to borrow as much. And if they borrow it much, it is manageable. If they borrow at all, it's manageable. So they can maybe take a public service job, which is, important, working for legal aid or the prosecutor or public defender.
The business of getting monies for law school is a big assignment. I think a lot of students, before they make the decision to go to law school, have to consider the responsibilities of how they're going to obviously take care of the debt, the massive debt that comes with it. What do you guys do with the student population in order to have the study of law prioritized over the debt of law?
Well, I think our primary goal, one of them has been since the school. Now, we're the newest law school in Texas. We've been operating about 11 years now. But one of the founding ideas was keeping the tuition low so that students wouldn't face as much of that. They get financial education. That's a requirement of the kind of debt counseling that you have to do. So when they enter, they get that. But it is still a factor for them, certainly. We don't want them to work while they're in law school. We have a part-time program, and those students do tend to work full-time. That means they just go to evenings. See, I messed up because the students counsel me, Dean, never say part-time law school, because there is no such thing as part-time law school. We go to school in the evening, which means they take a reduced number of hours. But if you think about that, you've worked all day from whatever. You get off at 5, maybe later. You run to the law school. You got to be in class by 6, and you stay there till 9 or 10, 4 days out of the week. That is not part-time anything. That's full-time.
Sure
It's double time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you do all your other work over the weekends. But many of them are able to get clerkships and things while they're in school that help them to take care of some of the expense, but that is a real issue.
Why do people go to law school?
Well, that's an interesting question. Every year during orientation, I get to do a session with the students. Now, we just put this in recently where I have been facilitating a discussion on the book, The Devil in the Grove, which is about a case Thurgood Marshall handled in Florida. This year, I'm going to do a book about the trial of Jack Ruby, which has some of the same themes. But before I get to that, I always pass out note cards, and I ask them just that question. Write down, and I don't want their name on it or anything, why it is that you have come to law school. And most of the answers are, the ones that are coming to our law school are interested in some type of public service, be that they want to work with immigrants or they want to help families. Some of the students have backgrounds where they've had to deal with family separations or violence or those kind of things. So they want to work on that. And most of them have that. So the ones that stand out to me, and I can say this because I don't know, I don't make them put their names on this, but there was one student who wanted to be a sports agent, which I thought was interesting coming to our school. And I hope he succeeds in that, because that was kind of stood out as something different.
Want to partner or contribute financially to the success and growth of this amazing podcast? Learn more by going to our website at makingblackhistorytoday.com or email us at impact@makingblackhistorytoday.com.
When you talk about handling the question of why people choose to go to law, do you have a favorite type of law?
Do I have a favorite?
Or area of law?
I would say... Yes, that's a trick question. I can tell you I have unfavorite parts, and I tease some of my faculty who teach in these areas about this. But everybody has to find their passion. I have someone that teaches tax law. He just anything tax law. That's what I say. I'm like, more power to you. Take that tax law and run with it. But that's his passion. I have one that's passionate about commercial law. And that would be contracts and real estate deals and all of that. I'm like, no, I'm not into that either. So my thing when I was practicing, really primarily with legal services and a little bit in the military, was family law.
Okay.
And of course, in the military, military criminal justice is also a major kind of issue. So I did criminal law and criminal procedure. So my subjects that I teach now, when I teach, are criminal law, criminal procedure. I do a death penalty law course, which falls into that category. I think if I picked a favorite, though, it would probably be criminal law from the prosecution side.
Is that based on your time with court martials in the military?
Yes, okay. And thinking about it was always. I won't say it was easier because then prosecutors will see this and they'll say, "Oh, she's saying our job is easy," but you had to be very organized and structured. Here's the criminal offense that so-and-so is charged with. These are the elements. And as the prosecutor, it's my responsibility to carry the burden of proof on each and every element. And you could be organized and systematic and do that. And then once you're able to do that, then flipping to the defense side, because now you're going to poke holes in that. You can also do that. So I guess I would pick criminal law, although I practiced some family law with legal services. And that was kind of also... I guess it was a way to be of service. We did a lot of domestic violence work, and people just needed help.
Yeah.
How did your experience as a Black woman in the military shape your approach to discipline, leadership, and justice?
Interesting for me, when I think about my time in the military, in the Marine Corps specifically, there wasn't as much... I don't want to say targeting or emphasis on being Black if you're a woman, because the women tended to stick together. Because unfortunately, there were things that they could legitimately, under the rules that they existed when I was on active duty, do to women that they couldn't do. It's not a Black or white thing that men, they couldn't do those things to men. We would do training exercises, which now when I tell people about this, they're like, that's crazy. Well, because the mission of the Marine Corps is really close-in combat, right? So the thinking was, well, women can't do that. And we have to let them have rifles. But let's do this. When we go on these maneuvers and things where we're practicing kind of war games, you had to actually strap your rifle on your back. And we would walk behind the men in our little group. And then we were supposed to learn the same things, but then they want us to critique how the men who were running this exercise, our colleagues, were doing that. And that doesn't create good feelings. I would just put it that way. The physical training that we did was different. In that era, women were not allowed to fly in the Marine Corps. So the Marine Corps had helicopters, some jets, but Marine pilots were all men. Now that has changed, that there are women who get to do that now.
Yeah, they do.
But there was a decision that they couldn't. And even in my platoon, when I graduated from officer candidate school, I remember one of the high scorers get to be in the honor guard. And there was a woman from our platoon, had been the top scorer in the company. But at the last minute, they pulled her out of this honor guard that carries the flags and all that. Because, women don't do that.
Right. Yeah. Women don't do that.
They pulled her out, and our platoon sergeant pulled us aside and gave us the address to where to write to our congressperson or to complain about this. But they did that. And it was really literally the day of the graduation parade that they did that. Now, I'm sure that stopped because I see color guards now all the time that have women in them.
So I have kind of a two-part question. I'd like to throw your way if you're up for it. I heard you say this. Excuse me. I heard you say this, and I wanted to kind of tickle your fancy here. You said, excuse me, diversity and learning methods, the topic. And I wanted to ask you, how do you account for diversity in styles of learning with the students in your law program? Because not everybody learns the same way. And for people who have challenges with learning, how do you impress upon these professors that these students are here legitimately? You just have to find a way to get them to understand what you're teaching them, through understanding that not everybody learns the same way.
Well, I guess maybe I'll have a phased answer to this, beginning with how our school was built, with the idea of incorporating multiple assessments into the curriculum, which means you get tests and quizzes and all of that throughout the semester. When I went to law school, and I graduated in 1983.
1983.
So figure out how old I am. High school, 76, law school, 1983. But then the law school method has traditionally been, you get one exam in the semester, period. You sit through the class the whole semester. In December, we do the final exam. Your grade is based on how you do on that final exam, period. That's it. That had been the traditional way to teach law school. And many would say, you're not teaching anything. All that is doing is weeding people out, because either you learn, as I've always been good at that, you learn by sitting in a lecture and reading a book, and you take the test, or you fail, because those things aren't the way that connects with you. Since that time, law schools have gone through a lot of changes. Most law schools like ours has what's called academic success bar readiness. And the academic success part is what is kind of targeting the students to help them all with learning and figuring out those kind of things. Because one of the things that students really need to figure out before they get to law school, and we're finding this less and less, you got to figure out how you learn and what works for you, because you have some ownership in how you make progress. So you need to know, for instance, I encountered a student. For me, I make an outline of something. It's going to be on a notebook paper. It's going to be pages and pages. I can connect with that and learn that way. There are students that don't. They can't. When you say make an outline, well, this student particularly had flashcards. That's how they learn. They put their information on their flashcards so they could go through them periodically. That's how they learn. They may need to have diagrams made. I think our faculty are attuned to all of those kind of differences. So we have the multiple assessment. We have a strong experiential learning program, which means you get to do the things.
Whatever it takes to get you.
All right, Dean. So when you came through law school, you came through a time where the Socratic method was used very heavily. So can you explain to the audience what the Socratic method is, and if you believe that it's still effective with students today?
Wow. I think it's like anything else. It's effective with some and not with others. But the Socratic method is really, I've heard the description of a class taught perfectly using the Socratic method is, all I do as the instructor is ask questions. And so you may respond to me in a certain way, and I say, oh, well, then change one fact in it and throw that back at you and have you respond. The kind of challenge with that is, if I'm talking to you, then I'm working my magic on you. I'm counting on the fact that, see, we may have a class, our incoming class, for instance, is going to be 90 students. So while I'm talking to you, I'm counting on the fact that the other 89 people are following this discussion, which may not be. And it may be that by the time I finish questioning you and not giving you information, I'm questioning and you're giving the information. It may be that you're the one I'll lead to the right conclusion, and the rest of them are just lost. Right? And you're not connecting with them. Some have thought of the Socratic method as, let's see, there's another old show called Paper Chase, and there was this professor, Kingsfield, and he at Harvard, and he would stand up and basically intimidate and, I won't say berate the student, that kind of thing. That's not really part of the Socratic method. That's not really what it's about.
Some people use it like that, yeah.
Even though some people use it like that, because law school is not a hazing kind of a thing. And it's questionable if I'm trying to terrify you with the way I'm asking the questions, whether you are even actually learning anything. So I find some faculty, I visit classes taught by my faculty every year, particularly senior faculty. Faculty use that in different ways to different degrees, because the other thing is I'm not going to stand in front of the classroom and just lecture you for an hour, because that is not going to be effective for some students. The same thing. They need to be doing something and be engaged in their learning. They need to be answering questions that the professor poses. And there are ways now, for instance, many of them use some technology that the students can answer the question on their cell phone, kind of like A, B, and C, and the professor posts on the screen the options, and then it gives you a chart. This number of students chose A, B, and C. It doesn't tell you who they are. So then the professor can work them through. So if anyone who selected A, can you tell me why you selected that?
Yeah.
And we can walk you through why that is or isn't the right answer. So there are a lot of different teaching methods. Many of our classes do involve, and I think in other law schools as well now, a writing assignment. I learned how to write because I had to learn how to write when I was really in high school, I want to say. Not all of our students are experiencing that now.
That's right.
And if you go to a liberal arts college, like, I attended a liberal arts college. My daughter, who's also a lawyer, she went to a liberal arts college. We learned how to write. That is just writing across the curriculum, all of that. So you know how to do that. Not everyone does that now. So we spend some time, our first year class, legal writing, where they deal with, okay, let's help the students learn how to write. And there is an evaluative piece in there. It has to be in order for it to be school. But the focus is on helping the students learn and master the skills and not weeding anyone out. The ABA won't even allow you to do that anymore. It's not, you have to admit students who you believe will succeed in your program, and you have to provide them the support to do that.
So you mentioned AI and how there's kind of been a transformation in the Socratic method with including technology. How do you see, is your question? How do you see technology and artificial intelligence impacting not only law school and education, but impacting law overall in the next 5 or 10 years?
Wow. All right. Well, I will say that actually this year I have a special task force of faculty looking at AI issues because it's not something we've really grappled with effectively yet. And part of us, particularly old school people like me, I'm older. When I went to law school, everything was in a book. You had to go to the library to physically study. That's how you did it. There were books in the library, and it transitioned into everything being electronic. And now we're moving into AI and the student being able to say, write me a paper that says X, okay? So figuring out how to teach students to effectively use that and to recognize, and actually my daughter, who's a public defender, shared with me a story. She's in Tennessee, a lawyer who does that, write me the brief or write me whatever it is. And AI would cite sources that did not exist.
Yeah.
And the one that's ethically responsible for this that you submit to the court is the lawyer.
Right.
So you've got to figure out, well, how do I use this in an effective way? Because the other piece of it is our graduates go out and practice with firms and everything. The firms are going to have to grapple with it because if I can get this task done effectively with AI in 3 minutes.
Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And also, we would love to read your comments.
I can't bill a client for 2 hours for somebody going to the library and doing research or whatever it may be.
So it has to be some kind of evaluation process that makes sure that what students are picking up through AI is quality and has a root that still comes back to law, as is written, codified, and through the processes and making sure it's legitimate.
Yeah, they have to double check their sources because AI will get it wrong.
Right.
Quite often
you want it to have a quality product. This obviously it has some good uses.
Yeah.
If you know how to use it effectively and you use it and you get accurate information, but teaching them how to do that and how not to do things. I think part of what we're concerned about now is academic integrity and whether people will do that. You should not say, write me the legal writing paper, AI, and give it the topic. You shouldn't be doing that, because part of what we're trying to do is teach you how to do these tasks. Same thing with something real basic, legal research. Now, you can find anything now in Westlaw electronically and all that, but what if you go to court and you don't have Westlaw available, or the internet is down and the judge wants to proceed anyway? You need to be able to go find a book that has the stuff in
card catalog.
Right. Well, whether they still have card, however you're going to find it, you have to be able to do that.
Well, it's the core of teaching anything. You still, the method of transferring to a digitized era from an actual grit and grind area where you have to, I think it does something to your polarity with your abilities to know how to do something versus relying on a computerized engine to solve the problem. I don't think it makes us, in my opinion, it makes us any more intelligent to rely totally on AI, but I think it's useful for something.
And you know what to do if it's not there.
That's
right. If I don't have access to it. And the reason I know it's accurate in giving me things is because I can check it out and it's okay. But if it's not there, then I know what to do. And I will tell you, we have not figured this out. I think lawyers tend to be real traditional. So part of us just want to say, we'll just ignore it and it'll go away.
It is not going away.
It's not going away.
It's growing.
And I can see you guys developing a teaching component that has to embrace that we know that AI is not going anywhere.
Correct.
And so we need to now figure out how we're going to embrace some of what it does in the collective of teaching law.
Correct. And actually, our university, UNT Dallas, the entire university, our new president, one of his initiatives is around AI and kind of getting us up to speed on all of those different aspects of it, because it's not just an issue for law school. It's an issue for
education.
Totally.
In general, down to high school. And these kids figure out how to do this stuff in grade school, no doubt. So it's just something we have to deal with.
So do you think writing as a transference of brain to pen to paper exercise is becoming obsolete?
I think, yes. I think it's becoming obsolete, except for us, again, older people who, I do that. I sit in church, I take notes. It just helps me to write things down. When I visit faculty classes, same thing. I'm handwriting, taking the notes. A number of our students, I remember, I was one of the ones, I guess I was resistant even to computers in the classroom. But this has been a long time ago when I was at the University of Arkansas, Little Rock. I was teaching criminal law, and I just said, look, no computers in this class, okay? You can't, this is a no computer zone. You got to use the, I didn't say what you were supposed to do, but I remember a student who is a very successful lawyer out there right now with a big firm in Little Rock. But he raised his hand and he said, what are we supposed to do? How are we supposed to take notes? What are we supposed to do, Professor Epps?
With your pencil?
And one of his colleagues, somebody sitting next to him, handed him a pad and a pen. Because they're just not used, and that's been some years ago. They're not used to thinking in those terms. I do have some faculty who don't allow computers in class now because if you think about it, all of us I put my phone away when I go to church again. So, because something pop up and you'll be there looking at that.
Amen.
Same thing. If they have their computers in class, they're working on whatever. But again, this has been a few years when I used to observe other classes. I would come in and sit behind the student and say, oh, hello, how you doing today? I'm going to be sitting right here behind you. Computer screen goes up. They're on Amazon. They're on all of this different stuff. It's distracting them from their work. And some of it is just subconscious almost. When it's there in front of you, like you have your phone
Yeah.
There, you just own it and you're looking. And they need to learn how to separate that is the concern so that they can think and engage with the material.
So you've been in education, law specifically, for a while with Arkansas, FAMU, and now UNT Dallas.
That was nice, the way you put that.
Thank you.
For a long time.
Thank you so much. What excites you about education and law right now? What do you get excited about?
Well, always what excites me is the students. And we have students with all these goals of what they're going to do with that law degree. That's what excites me, as well as when I go to places now, and I don't know if people in Arkansas will be watching this, because I taught for 17 years there. A lot of students, a lot of criminal law. And when I'll go to something in Arkansas or be somewhere, and the graduate will come, oh, Professor Epps.
Right.
I just want to, that class was wonderful, and I'm practicing criminal law now and all this stuff.
The key is you made an impact on them.
Right. And they're like the person I referenced about the computer. The fact that a person really when I've met the person before, even they were even a law student, and I'm never going to be a lawyer. I'm not going to do that. I'm just here in the summer program because I needed something to do for the summer, but I am not interested in going to law school. They end up graduating. They end up being a major leader in the community, being with the major law firm. And to think that you had an impact on that and to realize that that's a way to have continuing impact for me, not just now with the students, but I find some of my staff are younger people and they're coming to the law school, working administrative jobs. And some of them are interested in going on and being lawyers or working in social justice somehow. So there's all of that. And when I see them accomplishing, I'm so excited. For instance, there's one he probably wouldn't mind me saying his name because he's running for office in Memphis. I mean, he's become a major. He's trying to be a city councilman, I believe. I'll probably send him a few bucks because I remember him as a wonderful student. But when you see that happening and know, well, I had whatever small part in that, it's just very exciting.
In 2020, you published an article about critical mass and the impact that President Obama could have.
Oh, wow. Somebody read that. Okay.
What do you think the impact of what President Trump can have now? What do you think about the impact now?
Well, I believe that everyone can have an impact for the good. I think when I was writing that, it was, the Obama effect on legal education and whether that would serve to his presence, because of course he's a lawyer and he's also taught at law schools, whether that would serve to inspire people to want to go to law school and to become, you remember he started out as a community activist, active in the Chicago area, trying to make the community better. What was going to be the impact in the end of all of that? And I don't know whether it had an increase in the number of African Americans interested in law school and politics at all. I think right now there are challenges. I have confidence that everything in the end will work out just as it is meant to work out. I think it's kind of a message to us to remember what's important, really. There appears that there are going to be fewer social programs and things like I'm used to working from legal services. I mean, what was then, it's called SNAP now, it was food stamps. There's Medicaid, there's Medicare, there's SSI, there's Social Security Disability. There's these programs that have been in place for a reason and to help citizens. So if those aren't available, how are the rest of us stepping up? Whether we see that as a good thing or a bad thing, how are the rest of us stepping up to help our neighbors in need? I think for us, kind of a call to compassion, and to make sure those things are taken care of. And I want to believe that in the end, this will all work out for. I'm about to start. See, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to be a preacher, really, but
well, you are. You are
for God's glory and everyone's good, and it just makes us remember things. Why is it important to go out and vote?
Yeah. So, what is the In the vein of everything you just said, I see you loading up over there, by the way. I see you loading up.
I'm like, what is next, though?
The tennis shoe story.
How do you know about the tennis shoe story?
Yeah.
Now, hold it now. How do you know about? Okay. Well, I remember that, and this is all you have to say to even my daughter and my sisters is the tennis shoe story, and we instantly know what that is. My dad, in the later years of his life, was a Baptist preacher. And if you know Baptist preachers, they have all kinds of stories about all kinds of stuff they incorporate into sermons and things. But this was one that we'd been hearing since we were very young. So here's the story. I'm trying to make it short.
Take your time, as they say in church.
Take my time. As I said, when my parents decided to leave Arkansas and move to Chicago, the Chicago area, initially they moved into Chicago in with relatives. And my dad had a job temporarily teaching in a school. And his subject was math. He was a business major at UAPB, Arkansas A&M back then. And he wanted to go into business management, all of that. Those are the kind of opportunities that weren't available, but he was hoping to get in Chicago. But he ends up teaching in the school. My mother's area was teaching, and she goes on to become one of the first teachers in the Head Start daycare program when that started back in that generation. And so she was a director and all of that. That's ultimately. But when they moved there, and my dad has this job teaching, and they're living with relatives at the time, and the principal of the school comes to him and says, well, Mr. Turner, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to let you go because we don't need you to teach math anymore. That subject's not available anymore. And my dad at that time, of course, they needed money. They weren't wealthy people. They're making ends meet, but he needed money. He needed a job. He knew that. He had 2 children at the time and my mom to support. And so he just says to the principal, well, do you have anything else? Is there anything else that I can do? And the principal thinks for a minute and says, well, Mr. Turner, I do need a gym teacher. Can you teach gym? Now, my dad knew he needed a job, okay? He didn't know anything about teaching gym. But, of course, what does he say?
A math major teaching gym.
Yes. What does he say? Oh, I can teach gym. Yes, I can do that. Mm-hmm. And so it's called the tennis shoe story because kind of the highlight of the story, my dad would tell it, is when he stops at the store on his way home from school because he didn't have any tennis shoes. He didn't want to teach gym. He didn't have any tennis shoes. So he stops to buy the tennis shoes. And he, of course, is successful in teaching gym. And he later does get to manage a couple of nonprofits, managed a liquor store in L.A. for a while and retired from that type of business. But the point of the story is that you're resilient and you don't give up because he could have said, well, okay, no, I can't teach. You're going to say, yeah, I can teach gym.
And do what it takes.
Do what it takes to make that happen because you know you need the end result, which is you want to progress in your career, but you also have to support your family. Yeah. I still want to know how you found out about the tennis shoe story. Now I'm going to have my family watch this because I'm like,
that was the intent. I was hoping to, because I know when you talked about that, you had several things you were talking about, the obstacles, the belief in oneself, the hard work, the success behind work. And all of these things obviously are things that you need if you're going to tackle law school.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And I believe that was the point of you telling us.
And the reason that the story is significant and remember it, and you remember it is because every time I come up against the obstacle, for instance, I was in the military and they were changing me from the job I enjoyed, which the Marines do that. I think probably in being in court to doing civil law, which included environmental law, all this stuff I knew nothing about. Well, when those things happen, you're like, oh, yeah, the tennis shoe story. If this is what I have to do, I can figure out how to do it till I get to the next thing and I can overcome and accomplish that. So I think, yes, you're right. But I'm still going to find out how you found out about that story.
We can talk, Dean. I mean, I'll come back down to your office.
Okay, and we'll talk about that.
I want to then ask you, Dean, about the Eat Last.
I The eat last. Okay.
Eat last method.
The eat last method. I think this is what you mean. When I talk about, and I thought about this because one of the questions that I was sent was about lessons from the military,
That's
the
right.
Marine Corps. And I remember one of the things that the officer, they teach you, and this is when you're at war, but there's other ways to implement it as well, is that if you watch that, you notice the senior officers are always at the end, and the most senior officer eats last. Theory being, if there's not enough food for my Marines who are actually going to be out there fighting and running and doing all that stuff, then if there's not enough, then I want to be the one that doesn't get the food, right? So you're putting and for the Marine Corps, part of that is you're putting the interest of your Marines first before yourself. And you're always thinking that way as a leader. And that's just one illustration of it. And I find that I do still, if we have guests at the law school, I'm not up in the front of the line trying to get the food or whatever. You want your company, and part of that's good manners too. I know your mother's taught you all that. You have guests at home, you don't jump on the food first. Right. You let your guests go first. And so that's part of it. But the other part of it in war, I guess that's really a possibility. We may run out of those delicious MREs or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. That's meal ready to eat. It's a meal in a package.
Yes, ma'am.
And it's dehydrated stuff that is not very tasty. But we still may run out of it before the troops get it.
That's right.
That's what that's about. So you take care. And to me, it translates into making sure you take care of your staff, your faculty.
So when you retired as a major of Marines. How many Black women were majors of Marines at the time when you achieved the rank?
Now that I'll start off and say I didn't retire. I served for 10 years.
Okay.
And then they had some separation incentives, and I was a single parent by that time. And another thing that's changed, I've heard from our service representatives, they were just not really accommodating to single parents at all, period. Mm-hmm. You had to have the plan to drop this kid and go to wherever the war
wherever
is.
They say.
Right. Immediately, now they're a little bit more flexible and understanding, and things work differently than that. Now I've lost my state trip.
Black female majors at the time you achieved the rank.
I'm sure there weren't many. I don't know. I remember when I was at Camp Lejeune, that was my first duty station, which had been 84 to 86. There were actually 2 women officers, Black women officers there. And both of us were in the judge advocate's office. We were both lawyers. But that was the only ones. And there were so few at the time. There was a colonel, and this actually speaks to looking out for those junior to you. There was a colonel who knew about the 2 of us and knew there weren't many. I think there were actually 3 women lawyers at the time. He was a senior judge advocate. He knew of all of us, and he connected us. Okay. So when the other one, Captain Crowder, was coming to Camp Lejeune, he had already connected us, so I knew she was coming there. And so we could kind of connect and be friends. I never got to meet the third one in person, but I remember being told by one of the senior African-American enlisted women Marines, when I got to Camp Pendleton, by that time I was a major. And I'm just going to the exchange to shop. That's the military store on the base. I'm going to the exchange to stop, and she says the word got out because the Marines saw there's a Black woman major here at the base. And so it's
a big deal.
Yeah, it was a big deal because they're not, and wanting to come and make sure they salute and all of that stuff, which is an honor. So I'm sure there were not that many. At the time, I couldn't give you a number because the only number I remember is those 3 women judge advocates when I came in on active duty, and that being...
And were y'all all Black?
Yes. I'm sorry. There were only 3 Black women. Mm-hmm. Now, there were other women, but women tended to bond together a lot more because there were so few of us, and our training requirements, particularly around physical training, were different.
Shift gears. Getting take you down a little deeper in the rabbit hole. Yeah, well, you know it's gonna happen at some point. Obviously, a growing number of Black female deans.
Okay.
In law school over law schools now. I didn't realize that number has started to really pick up. What do you attribute that to?
I don't know if this will need to be edited out. Well, no. I remember there's one of the more senior ones, and I'm very good friends with her, who's dean at the University of Arkansas Fayetteville Law School. That when they used to have the women dean meeting, they could have it like at a small table in a restaurant because there's like 3 or 4. And now there are many more, and I don't know what the number is, but we're just growing, and we try to stay connected with each other. Now, the part I said, well, will they need to edit this out if I really say this? I think the jobs used to be kind of cushy, and you maybe would be the senior faculty member, and that's how you get to be the dean and all of this stuff. But now they just involve a lot more. There's a lot more to them. There's the ABA accreditation, all that side. And then there's also all the HR issues and
politics,
all these different things. And so, yeah, you need the work done. We're here to do the work. We're here to do the work. So I don't know if that's true or not, or whether it's just that there are more women, Black women lawyers, more in the academy, even though there aren't that many. It's a small percentage of even Black law professors and law deans. But there's still more than there used to be. So,
Dean, what do you want your legacy to be? What would you like for people to remember you by as?
Wow. I'm going to keep saying wow. That I cared about them, really, whoever it is, and that I show compassion and courage. I like to be the person that encourages people behind the scenes. And I think that's what I like to be known for. I think my family has a legacy, really, of public service. We've all been in that some way or another. And the latest level is my daughter, who I will say her name. Her name is Eliza. She's a public defender. But she was with a firm initially, and she's making more money. And, with firms, there's more possibilities to do all of this and other. And then she came to me and said, Mom, I want to be a public defender. And part of me is like, why would you want to be a public defender? You're going to make less money and all in all. And what she finally said, and you love it when your kids do this to you. She says, well, Mom, aren't you always saying how important public service is? Yeah. Well, okay. I guess I am saying that. A colleague of mine at FAMU who had been a public defender for many years, and I think he's gone on to another school, but he told me about a book. I want to say it's about a public defender, and there's a documentary that goes with it. And it's about public defenders talking about all these things that happen. One woman, the client hit her in the head or something in court, all this, and how stressful it was. And he's told me, just have her watch this, read this book. If she still wants to do it, then, that's her thing. And she's been doing it now for close to 10 years. She really does enjoy it. Yes. Helping the clients. And unfortunately, what I've had to explain to her at one point is, because I'm a legal services lawyer, I didn't do public defender work. But even though we're there, we're trying to help low-income people who need our services. Unfortunately, sometimes they just see us as part of the system. Aren't you the lawyer the government paid for, so you're going to do what the government wants, as opposed to being passionately connected to my cause.
Right.
Now, we know as ethically, lawyers have that obligation to advocate for their client and to not put those other things ahead of that. But from a low-income person who's been fighting the system all their lives and seeing these things work against them, they don't necessarily know that or appreciate that. And so it does require a lot of love and patience to do that work. But it's important work.
When you look back over your career in uniform and academia, what are you most proud of?
Okay. What am I most proud of? Well, I'm most proud of those students that I've helped to educate and get on the right path, to being whatever they're being, whether it's a public defender, whether they start their own firm, however they serve the community. I am proud of the fact that now this wasn't just me, but this was through an effort of our entire law school community, that we work through that ABA approval process, because that took like 7 years for all the things to be put into place, and a lot of work by a lot of people. But we got to that place where we are the most recently fully approved law school in the country, not just in Texas. So that is a major accomplishment for the community, for UNT Dallas, for the law school. It's something I'm very proud of. And of course, I'm proud of my lovely daughter and her family, perhaps the next generation of lawyers in our family. And we were just visiting with my daughter this morning about this, but just trying to create a legacy of accomplishment, because as things change, what's always going to remain the same. I shouldn't be that pessimistic about it, but I think this still exists, is that if you are a person of color, you're going to have to be twice as good and work twice as hard to get half as far. And you have to be thoroughly equipped. And so for people raising kids now, that means making sure they get a good education. They're getting everything out of school that they can get, because even if that education, you still may not get to your ultimate objective, but you're going to be further ahead if you do that. And they're just going to have to be thoroughly prepared, and the parents are going to have to plan. Like I'm going to start contributing to my grandchildren's college funds, because they've got to be prepared, and you got to be prepared for the fact that you're going to have to pay for it, because even borrowing student loan money has just become
not going to be there.
It's not going to be there. There's limits on it, so that might not be available. But we want our children to achieve and be successful. So I think that would be my legacy if they continue on, and I'm sure they will. Their parents will keep them on the right path, and that will be education has made such a big difference in my family, from my parents being the first generation to be able to go to college, and for that passing on through generation to generation. So I think that's kind of a legacy, in remembering the importance of public service. My parents' career centered around public service. They were always, I got to volunteer in the Head Start daycare program, and go to the different summer camps and do these different things, because for those of us that are able to achieve more, was it from whom to much is given,
much is required.
Much is required. To be sure that we're helping and encouraging others along.
I have a final question for you, Dean Epps. I really appreciate this conversation we're having. I want to take you into the fray of it just a little deeper, and this will be my wrap up for you.
Yeah, we have some water.
I want to know what bothers you about our justice system.
Well, what bothers me about the justice system? I think that there are racial disparities in that, because there's so many points at which people have discretion, primarily with prosecutors. People sometimes think they want to change things to help, Black people or whoever it is. They want to be public defenders. Well, really, you may want to be a prosecutor, because they're the ones that decide, am I going to cut a deal on this case? Right? I'm going to take a plea. Is this something that's not even going to get prosecuted? When I teach death penalty law, I've done that before. And it's clear. I mean, there was a case that we always cover about if you are what predicts whether you're going to get the death penalty is whether you are a Black man, particularly if you killed a white person, you're more likely to get the death penalty. There's studies that were done that demonstrated that. And that case went all the way to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court basically said, you've got to prove racial animus, meaning you've got to prove that someone intentionally discriminated against you because you are Black. You cannot go on those correlations.
Right.
And one of the correlations that was really strong, and it comes back to prosecutorial discretion, which is probably where I got off track, and how that's used. There are discretion at several points. It can go either way. And the courts have been very, very reluctant to get involved in that, because discretion can be used for or against you. I agree with that. But it seems like it gets used against people of color more so. And we're disproportionately impacted by that. So if there can be changes, and I think that's a total social reform. There are people who have done things and do need to be behind bars. But what happened to get them to the point where they did this? And could we have intervened earlier to help them get on the right path? And are they getting zealous representation when they get to court so that all of their rights are observed? I think there's so many factors, and that when you see the disparity, you think somehow connected with those things.
It was a sneak move to a two-part question. So here's the last part of it. When discretion turns discrimination, and the adverse impact of the justice system.
That sounds like a dissertation title.
Towards people of color.
Mm-hmm.
Is our democracy at risk now?
Well, I think that what concerns lawyers, including me, is the concerns about the rule of law, that things that we kind of took as norms are not observed in the same way. And for me, being from Arkansas, the thing that comes to mind first is there is a story about the Little Rock Nine. And the Central High desegregation, and that the president at the time, I believe it was Eisenhower, who sends the troops in to enforce a Supreme Court order that school was supposed to be desegregated and to protect those students. The norm was that if the Supreme Court decided this, that the executive would enforce it. I'm not sure that that's the norm anymore. And there have been people who question, whether that should be the case, that we are governed by that or we're governed some other way. So I think, I guess I'm in support of following the rule of law and following the decisions of the court, whether you like them or not.
So how would you change it?
How would I change it?
That became a three-part question.
It became a three-part
Well, we're going down the hole.
Just that everyone observes the structures, that the systems that we've had in place that were created. Now, granted, there's flaws to start with, and the U.S. Supreme Court over the years has had to interpret various things. As we all know, we start out saying, separate but equal under Plessy versus Ferguson is fine. And then we come back in Brown later and reverse that.
Peak Kansas.
We have to kind of continue on that path. I think that's the way that it's fixed. And primarily, citizens have a right to get out and vote. And I think part of the concerns with the elections have been, and not just this last election, but previous elections as well, is that not all of us are voting. Either we become apathetic, we think it doesn't matter, it does. We don't register, we don't take advantage of our opportunity to do that. Again, going back to the country where my dad particularly grew up way back in the woods, where literally he told the story of where they had, at that time, they had a box for the white people's votes and a box for the black people's votes. And so if you went downtown or wherever it was to vote, and you're black, you're going over in this man. Can you imagine? And that was
now, he didn't have to do poll taxes and stuff.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
He actually, in my mom's home somewhere, and we're going to preserve this, but there's a receipt where someone, they paid a poll tax because voting was that important.
Right.
But we've come past all that. We think we've come past all that, and we don't want to go back into those kind of things. But that took involvement by the courts to get to that point, and for people to accept. When I say something like that now, and I don't know, there'll be people listening to this thinking, "Oh, that couldn't possibly be
a thing of the past."
That even was back then that they would do that. But yes. So we have to make sure that we get out and take advantage of that, because that kind of thing, at least, is not going to happen. The Supreme Court said no poll taxes, but that can
things change.
Things could be changed.
And when we talk about voting, I think specifically you were talking about the presidential elections, but we also need to be voting in our local elections, which affects us in our day-to-day lives. So voting locally, making sure you're registered to vote is really important, and getting the background on the people that we are voting for in our local elections.
And not just the background of people that we're voting for, because what gets under my skin more than anything is people not knowing the associations that these people that they're voting for are involved in. So and frame properly, giving the best views of that person thoroughly before you vote for them.
Yeah, and remembering, just as you said, what makes a difference. If you get charged with a criminal offense in this county, the U.S. Supreme Court is not deciding your case.
That's right.
They're not judging you. It's going to be the judge sitting on that bench, who maybe one day will be one of UNT Dallas alums, will be there being the judge.
I love how you brought that around. Yeah,
that's right. Will be.
Yeah.
But those elections are important because they have the most direct effect on your life.
Sure.
Those up there, yes, the president, all that does matter. But the ones that, as you said, are going to have the direct effect on your life are the local elections that may be not the same time as the presidential election. So you have to make sure you get out and do that.
Exactly. All right. So this is the last question.
Oh.
This is the Making Black History Today podcast. What does Making Black History Today mean to you, Dean Epps?
Well, what it means is continuing to be excellent and to prepare ourselves for opportunities and to take advantage of those opportunities when they come. And a lot of that is discretion to know what's for you and how you can make a difference. And once you are in those positions where you're making a difference, to remember more Black history is made by you being committed to your communities and bringing others along. But I think for those of us in positions, we have to focus on excellence, staying in those positions, helping others along, and doing it because it's the right thing to do. And that benefits everyone. Whatever color they may be.
Well, thank you so much for joining us in the studio. We're so happy and grateful that you took your time out to be with us on the Making Black History Today podcast.
Wow.
Thank you so much. It's good to see you. I look forward to coming back down to the chambers and getting in and getting some of these other questions asked to you that I didn't get to answer.
Tell me about that issue story.
And thank you all so much for listening and watching us today. We'll see y'all in 2 weeks. Remember to like, share, follow, and subscribe. And we are looking forward to seeing your comments. Thanks again. See y'all in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.